10,000 men, lead them up to Mount Tabor, and lead Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, his chariots and his troops to the Kishon River, and he will give them into your hands. And Barak said to her, if you go with me. Have most of you heard this story before of Deborah? Some of you have. Some of you maybe not have heard the story of Deborah. I'm assuming there's some of you out there because Deborah is not very well known. It's interesting, this part of the story, because Barak, some people say he wimps out here. He says, if you go with me, I'll go. But if you don't go with me, I'm not going. Some people say he really wimps out. I don't know about that. I think he is smart enough to realize that God is speaking through Deborah. That God is blessing what Deborah does, and he wants God's blessings with them. There's that phrase, one apple spoils the whole bushel. The question is, who are we hanging around with? Yeah, we need to be that light to the world, but also the question is, who do we have around our own lives? Do we have people around our own life who are close to the Lord, who are growing? Or do we have those that are going to pull us away? And it's interesting at this point because Barak was a great soldier, but he wasn't a prophet. Deborah is a prophet and a judge, but she's not a soldier. But they work together. Two are better than one. Book of Ecclesiastes says that. Two are better than one. Can one keep warm at night by themselves? No. Two keep warm by themselves at night. Two can support each other. Two can defend each other back to back. And it says a strand of three in the book of Ecclesiastes, a strand of three no one can break. You braid your hair, well, if you have long hair, you braid your hair in strands of three. Ropes are braided in strands of three. Barak, Deborah, and Yahweh God. Yahweh God go off to do the battle. Stronger together than apart. But it happens because Deborah is living out her life. She is breathing in what God is calling her to do. The story goes on. Deborah says, certainly I will go with you, but because of the course you are taking, the honor will not be yours. But the Lord's going to deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman. So Deborah went with Barak to Kadesh, and there Barak summoned Zebulun and Naphtali, and 10,000 men went up underneath his command, and Deborah also went up with him. When they told Sisera that Barak had gone up to the Mount Tabor, Sisera summoned all of his 900 chariots and everybody else that was fitted with iron and swords. What the thing we got to remember here at this point is, and I know I didn't tell you this yet, in the land of Israel, if we would look in chapter 5, there are no shields or spears. They don't have ironwork, it's believed at this time. So you're going to have 10,000 Jewish men going up against 900 chariots with men with swords and the rest of the other foot soldiers with swords. I was watching last night Braveheart. Some of you maybe remember that movie, Braveheart. One of the first fights between Longshank, the people Longshank, and Braveheart guy, William of Wallace of William, whatever his name is, and the men that were there fighting, they were there with sticks and stones and had a few swords, but not a whole lot. And the king had the chariots and he had the horses and they had all the stuff. But who won? The side that the walrus wasn't walrus. Wallace won. And I was watching that last night and I thought, this is the story. The fact that these men of Israel were going up against this king with sticks and stones. And the king had the chariots and the swords. But the king didn't have God with him. So we go on. Live it, breathe it, we're called to do it. We're called to be into action. Deborah says to Barak, "Go, this is the day the Lord has given Sisera into your hands. Has not the Lord gone ahead of you?" So he went ahead onto Mount Tabor with 10,000 of his men. And at Barak's advance, the Lord routed Sisera and all of his chariots and his army by the sword. And Sisera got down from his chariot, and he fled away on foot. This is an interesting part here, because the valley where they are fighting in 1799. Okay, go with me. 1799. Napoleon was on the advance. So just 213 years ago, 1799, Napoleon was in the same valley. Napoleon was fighting an army, a Turkish army. And the river came up and flooded and aided Napoleon's victory. If we would look in chapter 5 here of Judges chapter 5, it says that the river Kishon swept them away, the age-old river, and the horses thundered their hoofs, and they galloped, and they were stuck. What is believed happened is that Barak is up on the hill of Mount Tabor. It's about 1,300 feet in elevation. There's the plains with the river. And the river flooded. And what happens to chariots when there's a lot of rain? They ain't going anyplace. The wheels aren't rolling. Isn't that amazing how God worked that out? Does that remind you of any other story? Maybe like the story of the Hebrews being chased by the Egyptians, and the Hebrews go through the Sea of Reeds and the Red Sea, and the Egyptians come in, and the waters come back, and the chariots get stuck in the mud. Isn't that amazing how these stories of Scripture keep coming back around, and they have the same type of theme. Again, it's a theme that we walk away from God, we get oppressed, we cry out to God, God hears us, He blesses us, and then we go back into disobedience. Here God is saving. God is protecting. God is delivering them from their oppressor. And Barak pursued the chariots and the army as far away as whatever that place is. And all of Sisera's troops fell by the sword. Not a man was left. Sisera, meanwhile, fled on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. And this is sort of important, but just a brief side effect. They were friends with the other king, so there were sort of alliances that were going on. And so this general, Sisera, thought he was safe in this lady's tent because the lady's husband was friends with her husband. Jael, the woman, goes out to meet Sisera and said to him, "Come, my lord." Oh, nice and flowery. "Come, my lord, come into my tent. Don't be afraid." Is a man supposed to go into a woman's tent in the Middle East even today? No way, Jose. Not at all. I mean, even today within the Middle East, we can't talk. Like if we deploy over to the Middle East, we can't talk to a local woman. You can't walk with them. You can't be with them. You can't look at them. And here you have the general who goes into the woman's tent. He thinks he's safe. She's got other plans. He says, "I'm thirsty." Well, of course he's thirsty. He's just been fighting a battle. He's losing the war. "I'm thirsty. Give me some water." So Jael opens up some milk and gave him some to drink and then covered him up. I'm a horrendously bad sleeper at night. I have been for years and years. One of the things that helps me sleep is I can get up, warm up some milk, put it in the microwave, warm it up for 30 seconds, take it, go sit down in the living room by the heater, by the window, and do some prayer time, and drink that warm milk. And the milk relaxes. There's something chemical, and I don't understand it all, but something about milk that helps us sleep.